as of recording, the only way to get this weapon is by vouchering it early. This weapon has not come to the event shop yet, but it will in the future. So if you're low on weapon vouchers, don't waste your voucher. And even if you're watching this video way off into the future, it might be coming back soon. Check the yearly content timeline down below to see when this weapon returns. Today we're going to be talking about Fortnite Save the World's newest weapon, the Slicicle. I actually was very impressed by this weapon. Its attack speed is really strong, its damage is really good. Even though it's locked to water, it's actually a very viable melee. I checked it out in my first look video, I'll link it down below, but I'll be using plenty of gameplay from it today. I used the Totally Rockin' Out build and a Blast from the Past build just to get good coverage showing this weapon in all the different ways that it can be used, and today we're going to be talking about the best perks for it. Before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the weapon itself. This has one of the fastest swing speeds of any melee, and they kind of nerfed it with the perk options. We'll see that later. I did mention that it's locked to water, but it makes sense as a Slicicle melee is literally just a blade of ice. It's a really cool theme. I love the winter aesthetic, and it releasing around the winter's venture season makes perfect sense. So if you're actually trying to use this weapon to maximum effectiveness, let's talk about all the different perk options. The perks that I'm showing on screen are pretty good for regular use. If you just wanted to take this and run, I wouldn't blame you, but there are a few things to consider. The first thing to talk about is that the perk options are a little limited. You can see that we've got all the basic perk options here. I'm going to move to the left-hand side so I don't cover too much. Then we've got an attack speed perk covering up our crit rating and crit damage options. Then we do have one crit damage option, but no crit rating. And then we have damage impact armor and stun stagger frozen. So there are very limited options. If you're not used to how these weapons are laid out, that means there is no attack speed, crit rating, crit damage possibilities. There is no attack speed, double crit damage. It's either attack speed crit damage or double crit damage or crit rating crit damage. So the normal perk options are kind of stepping on each other's toes. A lot of people, when this weapon first came out, were comparing it to the Storm King's Ravager and the Spectral Blade. And honestly, it does hold up fairly well in terms of damage. That said, it's just limited in its perk options. So if you're trying to use it in a general sense, no specific loadout, this is going to work. We should also talk about this 6th perk as well. Every 8th hit causes a freeze around the character. This is actually really useful. As of release, it does not work on mist monsters, and it does not go through Riot Husky's, shield. That actually makes sense. I mean, if they block it with the shield, they shouldn't get frozen. If you activate the perk from behind, it does freeze them as well, and that can really get you out of a pinch. That's 8 hits, not in a row or on a specific target, but just in general. So as you're swinging this melee, going through all the different crowds of enemies that you're attacking, it'll freeze every 8 hits, no matter what. And that can be really good for just obviously stopping the enemies from attacking you and making them easier to kill. And if you have Ice Queen, I guess technically you can do some extra damage to frozen targets. It's not that much extra damage though, and I don't recommend using her. Or if you have Brainstorm and you really want to make him useful, then frozen enemies getting killed can summon phantasms, but again, not super viable. I will be talking about loadouts at the end of this video, but if you want a complete guide on ninja loadouts, I'll link this video down below where it goes into all the different ninja builds, but I'll talk about this specific weapon build at the end of the video. As for the 6th perk though, I think the freeze is the best one you want to use. However, critical hit snaring nearby targets is really strong as well, and normal slowed and snared is also good. If you just want to slow the enemies around you and make them easier to kill over time, that makes sense, but I feel like using this weapon's unique 6th perk is just the only option. How could you use a weapon that has a special 6th perk just for it and then not use that? In the future, this 6th perk might apply to future weapons, but as of release, it is unique to this weapon. So as for the other perk options, we talked about the basic ones. Let's talk about what you can do. If you're running Totally Rockin' Out, you are going to want double crit damage. That is with a specific setup though. So right now I am looking at this as a Sunbeam copy. If you're running this for the weapon damage itself and you're running this with a Totally Rockin' Out build, which I can show in a second, double crit damage is the recommended way because the actual attack speed of this weapon is already pretty decent, but you are going to want to improve it in some ways. So this is what we got going on. Lotus Assassin Sarah is the exact same as Assassin Sarah. I'll show a picture of her on screen. She's a base game hero that you can pick up from regular missions and your llamas, and it's actually a really good hero for buffing the damage. I use Lotus Assassin just because it's like a founder's thing and I might as well. Totally Rockin' Out, of course, but Fumble and Battle Beat is where the conversation gets interesting. There is a bug in this game where Battle Beat has her elimination requirement cut in half by having Paleo Luna in support. So instead of every 10 enemies, it's every 5, and I normally don't like recommending builds around bugs, but seeing as this has been in the game forever, apparently it's just always been a thing, it's worth considering. Even if that gets patched in the future, Battle Beat is a great support. And when I was trying it out today, I found that Fumble was nice to have, but I found that activating Totally Rockin' Out consistently is key. So that's where Subwoofers is actually a major recommendation of mine, because when you are not using an attack speed perk, even with a 0.47 swing speed like this weapon has, it's still swinging pretty slow. That is really leaving you in the dust, and not having your team perk activated really sucks, and getting 10 or even 5 eliminations with Battle Beat isn't always the first thing you can do. If you're going up 1v1 against the Smasher, you want to activate this as quickly as possible, and that's where having wafers can be really, really nice, just to activate that on command. As for the rest of the perks, you got a few options here. Anatomy Lessons is really nice, because we do have one crit rating perk. You can see that with Wedo Fiona in support, raising our crit rating by 15, our chance to crit goes to 37.5%. That's huge. That means over a third of our hits are actually going to be critting, and it's not for a ton of damage, but it's plenty often and definitely worth using her in support for that. So with Wedo Fiona in support, we also have Corrosive Strikes here. This is just the build that I was trying out, and for people that pause the video and run away, this is for you. I actually do recommend Paleo Luna for the reasons aforementioned. Not only is Paleo Luna already very good, 3% of your current health added on to this weapon is also a lot of damage as it is, and of course cutting Battle Beat's requirement in half is a super nice bonus, and Monster Smash is absolutely required. Arlene Iza is an event hero available in the Fortnite Mare season. She's going away very soon as of this video releasing on November 22nd at Shop Reset. Timeline in the description if you guys ever want to see when stuff comes around. Definitely worth bookmarking that. It's super useful for information, but her Life Leech healing you is essential for this build. Totally Rockin' Out does heal you, but it's nowhere near enough to keep up with all the damage you're going to be taking as a melee hero. Yes, freezing the targets around you every 8 hits is nice, but beehives don't disappear. Riot Huskies are kind of immune. Bubble shielders exist. Mist monsters don't care. Like, it's not a get out of jail free card. It's kind of just a nice thing to have. So Arlene Iza is super, super nice. Now to talk about this build as a whole, if you've got Subwoofers to activate it whenever you want, Saurian Claw is working just to be amazing, and you've got this weapon perked with double crit damage, that will be a very, very strong combo. If you are specifically running this for Paleo Luna, who is an amazing hero, attack speed, crit damage, double damage is what you are going to want, and I would recommend a Bright Core copy. There is a cutoff point where Bright Core is actually worse than Sunbeam. If you are full health with well over 1 million HP and you've got a bunch of teammates boosting you at about 1.7 million is pretty normal with Paleo Luna and Blast from the Past, you can actually use Sunbeam to great effectiveness. However, when you're running Paleo Luna, it's very often for your health to go down, even if you're spamming coconuts. It's not quite that easy to stay full health. Bright Core will kick in quite often, and swinging faster is very nice. So generally speaking, Bright Core is a little bit better if you're running Paleo Luna, but let's actually talk about that loadout specifically. So this is the build that I sort of recommend for this build. It's extremely standard. This is like a Luna build for the ages. Luna in the lead, shockingly, I know. Blast from the Past, could not have foreseen that. Saurian Hide is one of the best support perks in the entire game. That armor is constantly active and makes you essentially, you know, harder to kill. It's essentially like a third of your health being added on top. If you have 1 million health, 33 armor is kind of like 1.3 million. It's not precisely how that works, but it's pretty similar. And Vigor is like a disappointing pick. It's not the hero that I want to recommend using, but we're not using abilities. We're not using the heavy attack on this weapon. It's not that strong. We're not using abilities, and we're not using a ranged weapon. Like, it is begrudgingly the only perk that actually does something in support for you. It's not a lot of healing, but it is something. So it's there. Battle Beat, same reasons as before. Even when Paleo Luna isn't cutting it down from 10 to 5, it's actually just a really nice perk to have. Swinging faster with Paleo Luna goes a long way, to the extent that when I've been playing on stream, I have been personally using Battle Beat and Fumble. If you want to just swing as fast as possible, as much as possible, that is key for Paleo Luna. Swinging faster with most HP that you can have is the best way to take advantage of Luna, and Fumble and Battle Beat is a great combo. But if you're running it Sunbeam, as I am in this configuration, it's actually worthwhile to have Anatomy Lessons. That extra little bit of crit rating means that you're critting often enough to take advantage of that crit damage perk, and it actually makes it quite viable. If you are just using this Bright Core and maybe use, let's actually see this together. If you go ahead and take that crit damage perk and swap it to something a little more useful, I don't know what that could be, I guess a damage perk, then maybe you could swing faster. I don't know if that's specifically better to go triple damage attack speed and Fumble and Battle Beat, or if you want to just have a little bit less redundancy, use crit damage and Anatomy Lessons. I'm getting into the weeds here. I know a lot of new players are probably lost right now, but I'm just saying Wedo Fiona and a crit damage perk is typically ideal, and then you just kind of have to use coconuts. They're a little annoying to search for coconuts. I don't love doing it personally, but it is the best healing in the game. Like, a healing pad is the only thing that compares, and that's a trap that costs resources, and it increases your damage by 16%. It's not a ton, but it is there, and it does help you, and It's just too good. Coconuts are like the only thing that can consistently heal Blast from the Past, because it's like a third of your health from a single coconut, and then it heals you over time for 30 seconds. It's just too good to pass up, and I highly recommend coconuts. So those are the two main ways to run this weapon. Basically, you want to run this configuration: attack speed, crit damage, or double crit damage. I know that that was a very long way of saying that, but I feel like understanding why you're using the perks that you're using is extremely essential to maximizing your effectiveness. Now, if you wanted to take that armor comment earlier to heart, you can technically run this as one of the triple armor melees in the game. I have never seen too much value in that, but if you're somebody who struggles to stay alive, or maybe you're just trying to run around and build your defense and enemies are harassing you, I don't know. Triple armor is an option for this weapon. It's one of the few melees that can do that, and it's kind of nice. And one last thing worth kind of mentioning is that it can have triple heavy attack energy efficiency. It's not a very good heavy attack to be spamming, but it's an option if you want to just derp around and have some fun. It's a thing you can do, so there you go. Those are the best perks for the Slicicle, depending on how you're running it. If you guys enjoyed this or found this useful, be sure to subscribe. Check out one of the recommended videos at the end here in a second. I'll see you guys in the next one, and yeah, have a nice day. Enjoy your new weapon. And then